Well, okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Ask Post workshop. I'm Marty Piccone. I'm a regional consultant with Post, and this course is for you, the viewer, to ask Post any question or questions that may be of importance to you. For example, you can ask questions regarding training, CPT and perishable skills, use of the learning portal, course certification, using EDI and Post Pass, officer and dispatcher hiring policies, professional certificates, for example, how to apply for them online, the FTO program, etc. This is for you. So I and fellow regional consultant John Turner are going to be your moderators or co-hosts for this session. And then assisting us today are fellow Post employees who are going to be answering your questions. We have with us fellow regional consultant Don Lane, Maria Goshop, who is an information technology tech, Information Tech Specialist Catherine Bacon, and Program Analyst Mike McVean. Today's presentation is going to be 1 hour, and it's going to be a question and answer format. There is no CPT credits given for this workshop, though, however. You'll be given the opportunity to ask questions during the presentation utilizing your chat box, which is at the bottom of the screen. John and I will be screening the questions and directing them to the Post employee who specializes in that area regarding your question. And as a matter of fact, if you wouldn't mind, start typing some questions now in the chat box so that when I'm through here, we can get going with it. However, with the number of people watching and listening today, we might not be able to get to all the questions, but we're going to give it our best effort. And also, if you haven't done so already, if you can add or correct your display name so that we can address the question to a certain person, that'd be perfect, or respond to a question. As a reminder, please ensure that you will need your computers or devices video turned on with your microphone turned off or muted. Also, the workshop is going to be recorded for future viewing and educational opportunities. And also, this is the first time we've utilized this platform as far as a web-based presentation. So please bear with us. We're going to give it our best shot and are going to ensure that you have a great learning environment for the next hour. So let's get started with your questions. John, anything we can start with?
Well, there's no question yet, Marty and everyone.
Okay. All right.
But there actually is a comment from the LAPD about COVID, training during COVID.
Okay.
And the PSPs, they have a department policy, no driving, and I would assume others have policies, no arrest and control. We know that's been a biggie. So if we could address that to start.
Okay. Anybody in particular you want to direct it to?
Let's go with you, Marty. Let's start it off.
Okay. So again, was any specially, I'm sorry, John, can you repeat the question again?
The question is, during COVID times, PSPs in particular are difficult. I assume a lot of people have questions as to whether there's any grace period or any extension suggestions about how other agencies are handling PSP training, in particular arrest and control.
Okay, so to answer the question being a grace period, no, not necessarily. Several months ago, when this whole virus began back in March, sent out a bulletin. I don't know the number offhand, but it referenced some of the training obstacles that agencies or law enforcement agencies might have trying to meet perishable skills and or CPT training. Post is asking that every agency do the best they can to get their officers and dispatchers trained, get in their CPT hours and perishable skill hours. However, if you can't, make notes of that. And when your regional consultant comes and does your compliance review next year, next calendar year, let your regional consultant know, and they'll make note of it in their compliance review letter to your chief and or sheriff or chief investigator. So the answer is no, there's no, you can't bypass it. Do the best you can to try and schedule it. But if you can't meet it come December 31st, again, just make notes as I referenced.
Good one. The next one, Marty, we've got a simple question. I'll just take it because it's an easy answer. The question, hiring, if an applicant lost their high school diploma and the school district now doesn't issue replacement diplomas, what will Post accept as an alternative? So the premise of the question might be a little bit inaccurate. It's from Laguna Beach PD. So Post does not require diplomas or copies of diplomas. What we require are verified copies of transcripts. So have the applicant go to the school district and get their transcripts. The transcripts need to say that they graduated. It needs to indicate that they graduated and on which date. when we do our compliance inspections, diplomas and those types of things are nice, but we all know that those can be created on Publisher or many different types of computer systems. So we're not looking for copies of diplomas. What we're looking for is the actual verified copies, certified copies of transcripts. And just as a note, if you're taking a Xerox copy of it because the applicant wants the original back, that's fine, but the investigator just needs to note on that copy that the original was verified by whom on which date, so that we know that it's actually an original. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, John. Mike, I've got a question for you, Mike McVean. Mike, the question is, how soon can we, an agency, submit a certificate for certificate request? I'm going to assume a basic certificate or even supervisor or management.
Ideally, when they're eligible for the certificate. Our backlog is very minimal right now, so there's no issues in, we're not months behind like we were a couple of years ago, and we had only 2 full-time employees in the unit. So
are you advising them to wait until that actual, for instance, a basic certificate? Let's say if an agency's probationary period is 12 months, should they wait at the end of that 12 months, or should they do it a couple weeks ahead of time? What do you recommend?
for a basic, especially for the basic, they need to submit that when they're off probation. We've had people apply earlier than date of eligibility, and it's caused us to either A, return the certificate, or we've actually had an issue. We've issued an error because we found out later that the training manager notified us that the applicant never passed probation. So the basic certificate is issued within 1 year of their appointment to full-time staff at the very minimum. Some agencies have an 18-month and some have a 24-month probation period. And we do give those a priority.
So again, just to clarify, they should wait until that probationary period is complete. Don't do it ahead of time, correct?
And we do give the basics a priority, by the way. So it's because of the compliance issues and for their, the Permit Reform Act requires us to issue it within 35 days of receipt. So we don't want anyone to apply a month or two ahead of in advance because they're not eligible if they apply earlier than their probation being completed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
John?
This next question is for Don Lane. Hey, Don, this has to do with the new SB 230 and the VR FOSS machines from Post. So the question is specifically, I heard that Post contracted a company to create a VR simulator for FOSS, force option simulators. When will we see this conversion? Can you describe the program?
I really can't. I haven't heard who they contracted with. Do you know of it, John?
Yeah, I believe that it's the old Megit, and now the new course.
I know there are several vendors in contention, but I didn't know who won the contract.
We have made an award.
They're
Steve Harding is working on that, and we're looking at a rollout around November through the end of January.
Oh, really?
So I'll piggyback on that a little bit to the group. As you know, SB 230 was the new law that's now in effect that says by January 1st of 2021, so New Year's Day this coming year, all your policies, your department policies regarding use of force must be in alignment with the Post model policies. The state legislature ordered Post to do a study and create new use of force policies, particularly in regards to de-escalation and everything that's going on. So that new de-escalation guideline book was published about a month ago. You all should have got it. It was several hundred pages, a very in-depth look at use of force and de-escalation techniques. And policies need to be aligned with the new state law by January 1st. The Post SMEs decided that the best way to push this training out would be through a FOSS VR system, a virtual reality force options simulator that is a 300, most of the machines are 300 degrees that are very realistic with shoot, don't shoot. The officer wears a vest that if he gets stabbed or shot, he gets an electrical charge that really gets his attention. So it's not like there's no peril involved. It's a very, very dynamic system. The goal is, Post goal, there were 40 in the state, and the goal was to upgrade those 40 so that they had the most recent hardware and software, upgrade those machines. And then they added a number of additional machines to the state, and we're going to total 75 to 80 machines by the time it rolls out next year. Currently, There have been some contract regional agencies, like down here in Region 9, it's Cal State Long Beach with Ron Mark. And I know there's others throughout the state. And what they're doing is they're doing train the trainer courses for this FOSS VR machine. So in order to be an instructor for the new SB 230 FOSS VR machines that are coming out from Post, the instructor will have had to have taken 2 courses. They have to take the contract course to learn how to teach the course, the content, the laws, the use of force application. And then they need to take a class from the vendor to learn how to actually use the machine. Because based on what the officers do and whether they take cover or not, and the de-escalation techniques that they verbally use during the scenario, those instructors will be able to, on the fly with a keyboard, change the direction of the scenario, whether it de-escalates or it turns into a use of force or a shooting situation. So again, a very dynamic program. If you don't know whether you're one of the agencies or not, contact your regional rep. There is a primary list of agencies that are getting the machine. And then there's a secondary list. If for any reason it doesn't work, there's secondary agencies on standby and regional training centers. Like here, it's going to be Rio Hondo and some others, Torrance, et cetera, and Gardena that are going to be getting the machines. So it'll be up and running. It'll be a regional training program. And by middle of next year, I think it'll be a very, very value added plan to our post offerings.
Okay, Maria, here's a question for you regarding EDI. Employee retires before retirement age due to a medical concern. What does an agency do to, what do they select to take them out of the EDI system? The options are resigned, discharged, retired, deceased, felony, serious crime. Which one do you recommend that they choose for that option or that
Medical
scenario?
retirement, it should be a 6 other. If it doesn't fall specifically under any of the other categories there, then 6 other is the one to go with.
Are there any other unique scenarios outside of retiree, or that's a frequent question you get regarding appointment status or appointment title, and then you can share there? Anything that pops in your mind?
No, not right now. It varies with each agency and each person. So no, but if you have any questions or you're not sure, anything like that, give us a call. There's 2, Marife, Gintu, and myself. Give us a call and we'll help you out with that.
Okay. And just for our viewers, if you're not certain, if you have access to EDI, on the EDI homepage, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a Contact Us button. The EDI tech support, Maria being one of those, once you hit that Contact Us button, their phone numbers and contact information is on that Contact Us button. It also has Mike McVean's information if you have any certificate questions. John?
You bet. And hi, Domino. I appreciate that. I haven't gotten your email yet. Good seeing you online. The next question is, I'm going to pitch it back to Don, if I could, please. What specifics is Post looking for in an out-of-state employment letter to ensure that an applicant's previous experience is credited up to the 5-year limit?
Yeah, that would be, it's not necessarily the employment letter. We have a basic course waiver process if they want to transfer from one state to the other. And they have to go through a process through the Basic Training Bureau at Post. And I think it's Consultant Gorwood over there is handling that right now. And what you do, you have to submit all your background from the basic course and the other courses that you've gone through over the course of your career. And then that's put into an analysis by the Basic Training Bureau and determines whether or not that officer has the equivalency of the Post Basic Academy. And then if there's any deficiencies in that, then the applicant can make up that training through various post-course sit-ins on doing auditing the course so they have those credits behind them.
Okay, thanks, Don. Catherine, I have a question for you regarding the Learning Portal. Tell our viewers what the difference is between self-paced training courses and videos.
Sure, happy to. So right now, all of the training videos that were previously provided on the physical DVDs, those are all streaming, all of the current titles. So you can access all of those on the portal. These are presented as either a facilitated mode with an instructor who would lead discussions and talk about the learning points that are found in the facilitator guide. And then a roster is entered on EDI to provide credit. The self-paced training, those are just what they are, self-paced. And the interactions and evaluation activities are built in so that when the learner completes the course, the CPT credit is automatically granted. So one uses a facilitated model. The other is truly a self-paced model.
Okay, John?
Terrific. This next question is going to go back to Mike. Mike, can Basic Academy certificate credits be split for use for application for an intermediate or advanced certificate if the applicant needs to split these credits between training units and education points? Or does it have to be only for one or the other?
Yeah, the only exception would be if it's a modular course, we could like use 2 modules for education and 1 for training. But if it's a regular full academy, it's either going to be used for education or for train points. You can't use it for both. And obviously, if they have to use the academy for college, they're undereducated. Therefore, they're going to be we'll have to sacrifice the train point total to get them qualified on those college units.
Stefan, I see you there. If you can unmute your mic, did that answer your question?
And that goes for any post-certified course that's used for college, not just the academy. It's either going to be used for training or for education units, training points or education units.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, it did.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure before we moved on, your question was answered. Marty, back to you.
Sure. Don, this is for you. With AB 392, the use of force / de-escalation new laws, and duty to intercede as a future of training, as an instructor, would you recommend us getting a post control number for force on force scenarios? Or would it be okay to have them under our current firearms program?
You can do one or both. You can add it to your existing firearms or force on force training, whatever you're doing there, and you can add that in as just additional information for the same course, and you kind of blend it into the course. Actually, the use of force rules like PC 835A and that kind of stuff should be blended in with all the use of force courses, including defensive tactics and or firearms, so that it's all consistent across the board. Or you can get a standalone force on force course if you want that. Just talk to your local regional consultant.
Great, thanks, Don. I'm just going to do his question. I know that Michelle addressed it, but just for the benefit of the group, the question was, are there any new procedures for TRRs? So I guess it depends on where you draw the line as to where your knowledge base is for TRRs. But the biggest thing about TRRs recently is that we're doing them all online. Everything is electronic. For more specific information, there's going to be a reimbursement workshop tomorrow afternoon in this seminar, in this symposium. So if you've got questions about TRRs and reimbursement requests, we highly recommend you joining us tomorrow in the reimbursement workshop.
And matter of fact, that's going to be at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So
Terrific.
I've got a question for Maria, again, regarding EDI. A common question that I get as a regional consultant is that if an agency wants to make a correction, let's say they went into EDI and they assigned an officer a certain start date, but they realized, oh, they made a mistake. What's the best way to correct that? And then is there a time window as to how quickly they have to make that correction before do they have to act within a certain time window?
In order to make a correction on a record, you need to complete the notice of appointment termination form, which you can get at the post website under the forms tab. And you're going to put in, like if it's a date, you're going to put in the correct date in the box 9, which is for the date. You can correct the ranks. You would also in box 10 check correction to record, so we know that that's what we're doing to that. There is no time limit. Usually if you make a mistake entering it and you notice it right away, you can email us or call us within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, less than a month, and we do it that way. But if it's more than that, then the notice of appointment termination form.
Okay, just a quick follow-up question, Maria. This one agency has an employee that was listed on their department, their post roster, and they were mistakenly placed on the roster twice. Is there an easy edit or correction for that mistake?
Depends on why they're on there twice. It might be that instead of doing like they're a trainee and they're a peace officer, they didn't do a status change for the trainee. So the system put the officer as a new hire. So it's got 2 open appointments. So usually let us know, we'll take a look at it and see what needs to be fixed and how to go about doing that. It might be, we can do it right there, or it might be a notice of appointment termination.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the next question for the group is going to go to Don Lane. Don, the overarching theme has to do with animal services officers and whether or not Post has any authority over animal services officers. But the specific question is, what certificates does an animal services officer need to possess if they're going to use a tranquilizer gun to euthanize animals found on duty? Do they need PC 832 firearms? Info only, the Long Beach Police Department animal services officers don't carry firearms.
Most animal service officers do not carry firearms. They have one person designated with under the 832 PC to have the authority to carry a firearm, use that to dispatch an animal. So it varies by policy between agency, but at the minimum, you should have the 832 PC course with the arrest and firearms portion, especially the firearms.
Correct. And also, just as a follow-up for Laguna Beach, it really depends under what penal code section the person is sworn under, whether or not Post would have a dog in that fight and any authority over it at all.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, John. Here's a question here that I'm going to answer, and this one comes up somewhat frequently, and I'll tell you why in a second. So it asks, how can we become instructors for the racial bias course on the portal so we can sign off on portal user participation? So this course, this is a California legislatively mandated course. There's Post and their CPT/perishable skills training requirements to include firearms, arrest control, driver's training, and communications. But then also, in addition to the Post requirements, the legislature has requirements. Some of those would be first aid CPR, domestic violence, the annual pursuit policy training. But one that gets overlooked the most is the racial and cultural diversity course, because it's only every 5 years. It's a ledge mandated course. But because it's every 5 years, it has a tendency to get overlooked because for a lot of agencies, you have a training manager that wears that hat for maybe only 1 year or 2 year, and there's no successor training, so that course gets overlooked. But to answer the question and the workaround here is this, is that Post just put on the learning portal this racial and cultural diversity course. However, it has to be facilitated, meaning that you can play the video, the course on the learning portal, and a facilitator has to walk through that instruction. Now, the caveat here is that the facilitator has to be trained per 1070 requirements as far as Post commission regulations. The only place that person currently can get trained to be a facilitator is at LA's Museum of Tolerance. It's a 24-hour train the trainer course. So to answer the question, to be able to facilitate on the learning portal, you have to go to the 24-hour train the trainer course. Now, there also are presenters out there that have this course Post certified, where your students can attend that course and fulfill that every 5 year requirement, or you can always request from your Post regional consultant the curriculum to present that course. And if you go to the Museum of Tolerance's Train the Trainer course, they're going to give you the course curriculum anyhow and encourage you to get your own course certified. But again, to answer the question, you have to have gone to LA's Museum of Tolerance's 24-hour Train the Trainer course. That's the only way. Even if you use a learning portal, the facilitator has to be trained. So, and again, that's every 5 years. That's for every peace officer. That's from the chief/sheriff on down. Again, that's an every 5 year requirement. Okay, John?
Good one, Marty, thanks. I'll take the next one. The question is, for agencies that run PSP training and CPT training all together as one course, for example, one 24-hour class, what do they do for students that attend at the beginning of one cycle and at the end of the next cycle, potentially a 3+ year gap for 2-year mandated courses, such as CPR, first aid, domestic violence, etc. So kind of a simple answer to a complex question. A training cycle is 2 years. Just think of New Year's Eve coming up as a very, very bright line. You either accomplished it or you didn't. And I know that sounds very, very blunt, but that's the bottom line. If you need firearms and you schedule it for January 2nd of next year, you're out of compliance for this training cycle. It's that simple. So everybody knows, I hope, that every 2 years is 24 hours of continuing professional training, CPT. And of that 24 hours, 14 of them are the PSP, the Perishable Skills Program. And that's 4 hours of driving, 4 hours of firearms, 4 hours of arrested control, and 2 hours of communications, either tactical or interpersonal communications. And that's required every 2 years. So the training cycle is the training cycle. It doesn't matter whether that class is taken or not. At the end of the year, that is the hard shut off, if you will, and the new cycle begins. And I know that we at Post know that this year has been exceptionally challenging for a number of reasons in our profession. You know, the COVID and the riots and everything else that's going on. We get it. And just like Marty said earlier, all we're asking is for a good old-fashioned college attempt to get this done. We don't want to use anything for excuses in our profession from doing what's right. We don't want to use COVID as an excuse. We don't want to use riots as an excuse. We owe it to the communities we serve to give it a good faith effort to try to get these things done. But we know at the end of this year how challenging it was, that there's going to be agencies across the state that didn't get this or didn't get that. The big one right now is arrested control. Policies that you can't I mean, if shooting, we can shoot every other lane. Driving, we can put one person in the car and talk to them on the radio. You know, TACCOM, you can do the 2 hours on the learning portal, piece of cake. CPT, the learning portal right now is your friend. There is a lot of really good training right now on the learning portal. And I'll let Catherine maybe tailgate onto this after I'm done. But the learning portal right now is your friend more than it ever has been, because you can knock out those CPT hours, even if you're way behind between now and the end of the year. The tough one that we found is arrested control. How do you go through the arrested control techniques without a partner? And that one is going to be extremely challenging for those agencies that absolutely have a policy that they can't do that. So do the best that you can. A training cycle is a training cycle. And to answer your question specifically, if they're outside that cycle, they're just going to be outside that cycle. So I'm going to turn it over for a quick comment on the learning portal to Catherine.
Sure, and thanks, John. We have several titles that meet legislatively mandated and post-mandated requirements. We are working on more titles, just so you know, including another communication course. And I'm not sure what else to say. You know, now that we have our streaming videos online, they're a lot more accessible, and we're continuing to improve that process, particularly now with our focus kind of shifting into providing support for the field for more distance learning options.
Since I have you on the line, Catherine, and I know that a lot of people in my region get kind of confused on this because it's all through the learning portal, but could you explain the difference between, you know where I'm headed with this, the DVDs that used to be streaming versus a course?
Indeed, certainly, yeah. It's essentially, it's just a matter of format. You know, you used to have the little disc you would put in your PC. Now we don't really have those drives anymore, and we've moved to the streaming. But in essence, the curriculum is the same. It's a format that is provided for a facilitator or for an instructor to use. As we mentioned before, the implicit bias and racial profiling course is the only one that has a requirement for a 1070 instructor. Any other can be facilitated by a training manager or another instructor. And the essence of that is just that whether you're doing it to a group or, you know, a small 1 or 2 people, you're using the facilitator guide and the student guide to work through the content, to explore ideas, to facilitate discussions, and ensure learning, you know, has happened. The self-paced courses, these are designed to be done without an instructor, and so we put those evaluation activities in there. And that's the difference. Of course, you know, I'm like in it all the time. So if there's a more clear way or people have questions, you can certainly email me or continue to ask questions. I just want to make sure everybody else gets theirs answered.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. Just real quick,
I hope it helped.
if an officer from an agency is watching a learning portal product, how will they know whether they're going to automatically get CPT credit or whether they've got to go to the training manager who uploads a roster for them?
Yeah, we're working on this, and Marty and I had a discussion about this, trying to find a way to like visually communicate that, hey, you know, this is this format and this is the other. Right now, you have to read the description. And usually the ones that are self-paced training just have the parentheses with the word web after it. And then everything else would be a facilitated course. And that doesn't mean that you can't, you know, go in and watch the videos or chop them up or use them in roll call. You don't have to, you know, there used to be a time when it would be just a 2-hour chunk. You don't have to do that anymore. It can be offered over time in different ways, depending on what your agency preference and abilities are.
Terrific. Thank you. Marty?
But we're working on it, so
Yeah.
stand by.
Can I add one thing? For if you are taking a course when you're done with it, if you get a verification of viewing on it, it means that you need to send it to your training manager so that they can enter it or facilitate it. And if it says proof of completion, then that'll automatically move over and you're done, you're good.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. That was probably more succinct than mine.
Just for, you know, because when you're doing it, this is what you see at the end, and it's like, then you know.
And then just to piggyback on Maria, that proof of viewership, the training manager has to go into EDI, the post multimedia course with their department and enter it. They click on that video, they go into courses and then rosters, and you choose that video that they watch and you enter their name. That's the only way they're going to get CPT credit. Now, if you don't care about the CPT credit and you just want them to get the training, then you're okay. But if you want to ensure that your officer and or dispatcher gets credit for a video, you have to go into EDI and create a roster for them.
Not to hog the conversation, I do want to put something out there though that, and then we can get to the real questions. We are looking at ways to improve that process. We know it can be somewhat onerous to have that extra step in there. So please be assured that we are looking at a way to maybe automate that process. So help is on the way and we'll be letting you guys know as soon as it's available.
Thanks, Catherine. Hey, Dawn, this next question is for you. It asks, can you confirm that lieutenants and above will show up on the compliance report if they still need CPT during that 2-year cycle?
No, lieutenants and above are exempt from the perishable skills portion, but they're still required to complete the CPT part. They have to have 24 hours of CPT one way or the other. But if they're lieutenant and above, PSP does not apply to that particular position unless that officer is involved wearing a uniform, working the streets, making arrests, and likely to engage in a use of force situation on a regular basis, but otherwise, no.
But the manager still will show up that they still need CPT credits if they're under that 24-hour total, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Thanks, Don. John?
So we've got a question here. It says, how do you, and this one's going to, I'll just take this one. It's a quick, easy answer. How do you fill out for reimbursement? I haven't gone to training managers training yet, so I'm not sure how to do it. So the easiest way is to contact the post reimbursement unit. And my answer has to do with a lot of questions that the group might have. The post website at post.ca.gov is absolutely huge. When I started working at Post, I was amazed at what a large, massive website it is with an unbelievable amount of great information. Up at the top, you go to post.ca.gov. Up at the top right corner, you have that search icon, the looking glass. Click on that and type in the keyword that you're looking for. In this case, you'd type in reimbursement, and you'd see that one of the top results is going to be about our reimbursement programs. And if you click on that, it'll explain a lot about reimbursements and what to do and how to do it. And there'll be links to procedures. And then to the right, there will be a phone number and a link to the reimbursement unit so you can email them. And they'd be more than happy to help you through the process. As always, we recommend, and we know that it's been challenging in 2020, but when you can, we really recommend those training manager courses, training administrator, training coordinator courses. You really, a lot of information to help you guys be successful doing your jobs. again, just as a caveat, we've all been in this profession for quite a while. And when I got hired by Post, I'm like, I know the rules. Then I got here to Post and I was like, I don't know any of those rules. So I understand what a steep learning curve it can be. But that Post website is really your friend. And before you reach out to us or ask somebody a question, just sit down on the Post website, use that search icon, and more likely than not, your answer is going to pop right up because it's a large, helpful website. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, John. Mike, this next one's for you regarding certificates. I was recently notified by Post that we had 4 officers who had not received their basic Post certificate. It was my understanding that the basic Post certificate applications were being submitted by the Academy. If that is not the case, what do you suggest a training manager do to ensure these new recruits have submitted for their basic Post certificates?
Well, every agency has their own internal policy. Maybe they could keep track of who has been hired and, just keep track of like a tickler file and who's going to pass their probation on a scheduled basis. It's up to them to keep track of who does not possess a basic, and they can look that up on EDI if they have access to EDI for certificate purposes, and just keep track of or do like a blanket email bulletin to their department and say, hey, if you don't have a basic and you've satisfied your probation, please contact me. I get all sorts of calls and they don't realize who their own train manager is. So I've got to direct them to their agency's train manager. He or she can help them out. So,
Mike, can you clarify the difference between graduating from the Academy and then being appointed with an agency and completing their probationary period?
Oh yeah, I'll clarify that. The certificate completion is for the basic course is presented by the presenter, your basic Academy school. The basic certificate that we issue, you still have to be an Academy graduate, work at least a year on the job as a full-time peace officer, and then you would apply for a basic certificate from Post. And that depends on most applicants have a 1-year probation, some have 18, and some have a 24-month probation. So, and for the application process, that requires submission by electronic submission by both the applicant and the train manager at that respective department. So if anyone has any questions about that, you can always contact me.
Okay, thanks, Mike. John?
Thanks, Marty.
So this next question is going to go to Don Lane. Don, this agency has an employee who started as a deputy recruit. He was injured and didn't complete the academy. He was then transferred to a non-police officer intern position without any lapse of employment. He would now like to apply for a corrections officer position with the same department. Does he need to do another police officer PHS, or does he need to redo his psych and his physical? You're muted, Don.
As long as the employee has been continuously employed by the agency, a further background is not necessary, just to transfer from one part of the agency to the other.
And I'd also just tap onto that. It depends on what type of correctional officer. If it's a correctional deputy peace officer, then that applies. If it's a correctional officer, that's under a different state entity to be in corrections. C-Post and help me, what's the other one? Anyway, but Post does not have any authority over corrections officers, just peace officers, reserve officers, and dispatchers.
That's correct. Yeah.
Marty, back to you.
Okay. Let's see. He's looking for something real quick here. Here's one that reads, I know the first aid CPR AED class is an 8-hour course on the Post Learning Portal. I learned today that bloodborne pathogens training is an OSHA requirement. Is that part of the first aid CPR AED Post class, or do we need to get that training through OSHA? And I can answer this one. Most of your first aid courses will incorporate or include the bloodborne pathogens content. The best thing to ensure that is to whomever you send your officers for training, contact them and just say, do you include in your course curriculum bloodborne pathogens training? Now, if they don't, then as you noted, that is an OSHA requirement. So going back for a second on that legislatively mandated requirement I was talking about earlier, part of the refresher training to include domestic violence, first aid CPR, pursuit driving policy, that racial cultural diversity class I was telling you about, there are several courses in there that are not, they do not have to be a post course. Matter of fact, all of those refresh requirements, post does not track those. So we as regional consultants, when Don or John or I go to conduct a compliance review, we don't ask, hey, let me see your training record for first aid CPR, or let me ensure that you completed the domestic violence course. That's not the case. That is not a post requirement. Again, that is a California legislative mandated refresher course. So the only time that those topics, those courses are going to become important is, heaven forbid, your officer does something wrong in one of those categories, in domestic violence related action or racial and cultural diversity action, and you guys get sued. A good attorney who is on the ball is going to want to see your department's training record. And so they're going to want to ask you, okay, chief or sheriff, when was the last time officer or deputy X went to their racial and cultural diversity course? And if you can't provide a responsive answer that they want X, then that unfortunately may just add zeros to the payoff check. So this is where these mandated refresher courses will come to bear. Post does not track these. So I say all that to say this, is that the bloodborne pathogens, again, is a mandated refresher topic. It's not a post requirement, it's a legislative mandated topic, but you can more than likely find that in a first aid course. So if that wasn't too much content, but again,
I would add,
I'm sorry.
I would just add that we do not have in the learning portal course, it does not contain the mandated bloodborne pathogens training.
Okay. But some of your other first aid presenters may. And again, a first aid course is not a post requirement. So it does not have to be a post certified course. The master you're serving here is EMSA, the Emergency Medical Services Authority. They are to the medical community what post is to the law enforcement community. EMSA sets, maintains, and establishes all first aid training requirements for first responders, to include peace officers. So post provides training opportunities through either the learning portal or certified course, but again, it is not a post requirement. So I don't want to cause confusion there. Post does provide it, again, like Catherine said, by way of the learning portal, or you can get a first aid course certified through post. So long-winded answer to a fairly short question. Hopefully that answered it. John?
Well, since you were saying that it's long-winded, I'm going to push this one right back to you, Marty. It reads, I tried to access SBSLI via EDI and noticed that Post wasn't accepting appointments at the time, ? So I assume the question is, are we accepting appointments for SLI? And if not, how does that process work?
You know, I am ignorant to what the current, maybe somebody can help me out on the team here. I know there's a couple times per year that Post has an application window. I don't know if we're in that period right now. Unfortunately, I can't answer that without having a look. Anybody else know offhand? Dawn, might you know? Or Catherine? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know. Post is pretty good about announcing when the applications are being accepted. And that's one thing too I wanted to point out, if I can real fast, is that if you as a training manager do not subscribe to the Post email alerts or Post bulletins, that's how Post communicates with its agencies, is through email alerts and bulletins. And so Post will always send out a bulletin whenever SLI comes around. Like I said, it's a couple times a year. If you're not certain how to get those bulletins or email alerts, if you go to the Post main webpage, post.ca.gov, and access the magnifying glass, which is the question box, just type in email, and the return will give you that option for you to sign up for email alerts and get Post bulletins. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know that question or that answer. If you go to the Post website and just type in SLI or Supervisory Leadership Institute, hopefully you'll get a return and be able to get that question answered for you.
Yeah, to tailgate on that, that's a great advice, Marty, because that's exactly what I just did, was went to the Post website, entered SLI, and I learned that the enrollment process is currently closed, and that the new open enrollment will be announced in a Post bulletin. So again, if you're not signed up for Post emails and bulletins, those types of things, I strongly encourage you to go into your Post Pass account and set your notifications so that you're notified of all these things, because these auto-generated automatic emails come out on a pretty regular basis. So we don't want to spam you or flood you or overload you. But the flip side is, if you're not getting information from us, it's really tough to stay up to date. So great, great answer there.
Okay. Thanks, John. I'm going to go back to Catherine regarding this learning portal question. The question reads, did I hear regarding the learning portal that there currently is not a notice that is sent to the training manager?
Not a note. So, Marty, did you freeze?
Froze.
Oh, dear.
I think Marty froze.
Did I
Dear.
freeze?
We had
Let me- I'm
our
sorry.
first post freeze.
It was a very flattering pose.
Wow.
It really was.
Hey, as long as I look good, that's all that matters, right?
I think we
okay,
all
let me
took
read it.
first aid, right? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll read it again. Did I hear regarding the learning portal that there currently isn't a notice that is sent to the training manager when a student completes the course so that the training manager can certify or acknowledge, however, that training?
That's right. Right now, there is not. We're working on that. So right now, the practice is for a training video. When that, viewed status flips, they can just send that to their training manager to say, hey, I've viewed the video and I'm ready for the facilitated module. For the self-paced courses, you don't have to do it. It's just automatically updated to EDI. And I hope that answers the question. If not,
Okay. Thanks, Catherine.
I'll stand
This
by.
next, yeah, thanks, Catherine. This next question is going to go to Mike about certificates, and it might involve some confusion between Academy graduation certificates and post-basic certificates. But the question was, I was recently notified by post that we had 4 officers who had not received their basic post certificate. It was my understanding that the basic post certificate applications were being submitted by the Academy. If that's not the case, what do you suggest a training manager do to ensure that these new recruits have submitted for their basic post certificate?
Well, the basic is the submission of the application is never by the academy. It's always by the agency where the employee works. Obviously, the applicant should have already received a graduation certificate when they graduate from the basic course. But it's still a combination between the applicant and the training manager to submit the application electronically to post. And then once that happens, we can evaluate that and issue the certificate. When in doubt, contact your training manager or check your post profile to see if the certificate's on your record. People are, believe it or not, people are just, they don't bother checking their own records, and there's a lack of communication between the applicant and the training manager. And usually they always contact me and I facilitate them to, I always encourage them to contact their training manager. I usually check like for example, today was a basic question, and I found the agency and I directed them to contact their training manager at their specific phone number so they could facilitate that process. So it's just a lack of communication sometimes.
Thank you, Mike. I agree. Part of the confusion in my region, I think, is just terms of art, if you will, because people call their graduation certificate from the academy their basic certificate, and that's not accurate. So when you graduate from the academy, it's the regular basic course, and it's just like any other course that you take throughout your career. It'll show as the regular basic course, the number of hours that you completed it, and that is not your certificate. That's just a course that you graduated from and successfully completed. Your basic certificate is what the beginning professional certificate that Post offers, and that happens when you get off probation. And then, as you know, you can qualify for an intermediate, advanced, supervisor, management, executive when you're the chief. Those are your post certificates. And oftentimes, I think we just get the terms confused, which leads to some confusion. So thanks, Mike.
Okay, Maria, another EDI question for you. The question reads, we have an NPO or a non-peace officer employee who took a civil course back in February, and the presenter entered her name incorrectly when entering the roster. Now her credits don't show on her profile within our agency because the names are different. How can we correct her name that was entered from that civil course? How can we correct that mistake?
Let us know. You can email us to edi@post.ca.gov and let us know what the names are so that we can then go ahead and take a look, see what's in the system, and merge it. Because sometimes it depends. It's just the name was spelled wrong. The social security number might be slightly off. So let us know, and we can get that fixed for you and get the records merged if we need to.
Okay. a follow-up on that is that training managers know this, is that although Post certifies these training courses, we are not the ones who present the course. The presenter, quote unquote, is the one who is responsible for obviously presenting the material and the content of the course, but they're also responsible for uploading the roster at the completion of the course. Per commission regulations, they have 10 days to do so, to upload that roster. So if you're finding that if you send your officer dispatchers to outside presenters for training, what you want to do is check back approximately 2 weeks after to ensure that that officer dispatcher is getting CPT credits. Because if they're not, a couple things could have happened. The officer dispatcher may have failed to sign up on the roster, or the presenter forgot to or has not yet uploaded that student information on the roster. And so you're going to want to hold them accountable so that your officers get that credit. So just a follow-up to that. John?
Thanks, Marty. That's good. Back to you, Mike, with another certificates type question. We have a law enforcement member who deployed with the Army during his 1-year probationary period. He is supposed to get his basic within the year, but is now going on a second, quote, year as a probationary officer due to that deployment. We can't violate the Soldiers Act. Do we just document that he was deployed, or what's the best course of action?
Well, we can't issue the basic certificate until the applicant passes probation. So this is more of a compliance issue, unfortunately. I don't know the rules on the Soldiers and Sailors Act, but they'll just have to, the agency will have to take a hit on the compliance side until the applicant gets back to the States and finishes his or her probation period. I mean, it's real more of a compliance issue, not a certificate issue, unfortunately.
Don or Marty, do you have anything else on that?
No, nothing further to add.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be primarily a department policy issue as to how you interpret and apply the Soldiers and Sailors Act. I know you can't violate it, but hopefully you'll welcome the employee back and he can continue with his probation. Once he's successfully completed his probation, that's when you would submit for the basic certificate.
Right. Don, this next question is for you. If a PSP instructor is exempt because they are teaching a course within the cycle, how do we update EDI so it reflects the instructor is in compliance?
Now, those instructors are exempt, but I don't know where that located, where you put that exemption.
There actually is in EDI under personnel, I believe. Marie can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
There is an option for you to exempt that instructor. And just as a reminder, Don, if you don't mind, just as a reminder, that has to be done every new training cycle. The PS has to teach at least one session of that perishable skills course to be considered exempt. But that exemption has to be done every 2-year cycle. Is that correct, Don? You agree?
Yes.
Okay.
So the next question is going to be for Catherine. Catherine, it has to do with CPT credit when teaching online. The question is, must students keep their camera on at all times to get that CPT credit?
I'm wondering if the question is being asked about a facilitated, right now we don't have a, like an interactive, like a Zoom kind of platform for courses on the portal. If it's the training videos, those are meant to be viewed and facilitated as the agency dictates. If this is about, say, an instructor-led distance learning course, that would be up to the instructor, and I don't have the answer for that one.
Right, thank you. Yeah, and sometimes you're right, Catherine, it might not be a learning portal, but there's, because of COVID, webinars become a very hot topic, as you know.
Right. We are working on revisions. Yeah, we're trying to clarify that. We're working on some revisions to help that. Right now, though, as far as regulations are concerned, we don't have that right now. And I will leave it to anyone from the Training Development Bureau to correct me or give me any.
Well, what I can suggest to the group is when it comes to webinars and the rules, both for presenting it and to get a course certified and to get credit for a webinar course, that's all found under 1052. So 11 California Code of Regulations, section 1052 sub E as in Edward. So 1052E has all the definitions and all the requirements for webinars. So to get credit as a student, as one of your students, one of your officers going, or to present a webinar course, all the rules and regulations can be found under 1052. So hopefully you guys know how to get to it, but since we're on the concept of regulations, if you go to go to the post website and you hover over quick resources, just slide down to and click on post regulations. That'll open up a web page, and down at the bottom you'll see 3 links. You want to click on the Title 11 Division 2 link that says Commission Regulations, and when you click on that, that will open up the California Code of Regulations that regulations, and those are a clickable, linkable table of contents by subject, and you can scroll through that for the subject that you're looking for. Click on it, it will open up a new page, which is the Westlaw page. That's the actual law, the actual regulation on that topic. So a lot of those questions you can ask yourself. So in this instance, you'd slide down to 1052, click on 1052 requirements for course certification, go to subsection E as in Edward, and there's everything you need to know about webinars.
Great. Thanks, John. Hey, Catherine, this is going to be for you again. This is going to be on the Learning Portal, specifically the Training Managers Network. Can you speak to or talk about some of the resources that the Learning Portal provides for the training managers, such as possibly the tutorials to help them walk through the process, how to assign training, and so on?
Sure. The training manager section of the portal is a separate feed. So if you don't have it, feel free to send me an email to let me know, and I can add you. The training manager provides an area where you can discuss training manager relevant topics that maybe don't even have to do with the portal, or even maybe post. You know, they could be about, hey, does anybody have a 1070 instructor they can recommend for a course, things like that. You could share files. There's some FAQs that we try to maintain. And most recently on the portal in the Updates Center, we have a series of portal tutorials that show how to assign training, how to add an NPO, things like that. We're going to add a tutorial on how to enter a roster for CPT credit for a training video. Does that answer your question, Marty?
Yeah, nice.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, I could go for days about the Training Manager Network, but I want to be aware of our time. But anyone can contact me, catherine.bacon@post.ca.gov with any questions or concerns.
Yeah, that's great. And just one clarifying question on that. So in order for a training manager to gain access to the Training Managers Network, they do have to consult with Post through you to give them that access. Is that correct?
They can request it, yeah, directly from me, from their regional consultant. Typically what happens is when, typically, nothing's typical anymore. When they used to do the training coordinator, training manager courses, and we would go, people from, folks from LTR would go, we would get a roster, we would add training manager access to all the attendees. Now we don't have that. So I think we might want to look at a better process, and until then, just send it to me.
Okay, thanks. And John, I think we have time for one more question, if you have something.
One more quick one for Don. Racial and cultural diversity is different from racial profiling, right? I thought it was racial profiling that was the 5-year mandate.
It's both. It's kind of an interchangeable name, but racial profiling is the official name as far as I know.
Thank you very much. Hey, I'm going to sneak a quick one in here for everybody.
All right.
It's worth mentioning. Is there a matrix that contains the current mandated courses, CPT, PSP, LEDGE mandates, racial profiling, etc.? The answer is yes. You can download it onto your phone, and you can also, again, use that Post website. So go to the Post website, post.ca.gov, and type in the search icon, in the search bar, type in Mandates Minder. Mandates Minder. And that will open up the Post Mandates Minder. And it is a great, I'm opening it up right now, and it is by subject alphabetically. And when you click on it, Like I just clicked on aviation security. It gives me the penal code that it's under, the CPT number of hours, whether it's a refresher or not, who is it required for, what's the cycle, what are the details, and then it's got links to the post catalog and other links as far as that goes. So if you're not using Mandates Minder to keep track of everything that's mandatory, please consider using it. There's a phone app, and you can access it on your laptops.
And one of the things, John, if you don't mind me adding, at the same post website, under the header of training, the drop down is peace officer. And when you click on peace officer training, you're going to see the alleged mandated training that we were talking about earlier. You're going to see refresher training and specialized training. And that will include those topics that I touched on earlier: domestic violence, the racial and cultural diversity, pursuit policy. So that's another great resource for you.
Perfect. Yeah, you can't break our website, guys. Use it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to encourage you to use that. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully this was good information for you. And we will answer a lot of questions. I know we couldn't get them all, but thank you for your contributions and your participation. We hope that the next couple days of training at the workshop is going to prove valuable. And
Yes.
thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. If we didn't get to your question, because I know we can get to all of them, please email your regional consultant. Go into the post website. There's a map. Hopefully you know who your consultant is, and fire those questions off to them. That's what we're here for, is to serve you and help you be successful. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Thank you. Bye.